Park Janu wiped the grease from his hands with a worn cloth. The mining station buzzed with activity around him, but nobody paid attention to the small human crawling through the maintenance tunnels. That was exactly how he liked it, the Vexstar. Aliens thought humans were useful because they could fit into tight spaces. Their blue skin and tall bodies made them too big for the smaller repairs, so they kept humans around like living tools. Park Janu had been working on this station for 8 months now, and the aliens still treated him like he was barely smart enough to hold a wrench. "Human," called Overseer Decanol from above. His voice was rough and commanding. "The cooling system in Sector 7 needs work. Go fix it." Park Janu nodded quietly. "Yes, sir." He gathered his tools and headed toward Sector 7. As he walked, he noticed things the aliens never bothered to look for. The way the power cables were arranged, how the security cameras moved, which doors needed special codes to open. The Vexstar had built their technology to be impressive, not efficient. Everything was bigger and more complex than it needed to be. Park Janu understood their systems better than they did, but he kept that knowledge to himself. Let them think he was just a simple repair worker. In Sector 7, the cooling unit was making strange noises. Park Janu opened the panel and saw the problem immediately. A simple connection had come loose. It would take 5 minutes to fix. But while he worked, he also did something else. He attached a small device to the main control board. It looked like a normal repair tool, but it was much more than that. The device began copying information from the station's computer systems. Not just the cooling system, but everything. Power grids, life support, communications, even the weapons systems. The Vexstar would never notice it because they never looked closely at what humans did in the maintenance areas. "Is it fixed?" Decanol asked when Park Janu returned. "Yes, sir." "Just a loose connection?" Decanol laughed. "Typical human work. Always fixing what breaks instead of building things properly the first time." Park Janu said nothing. He had learned that arguing with the aliens was pointless. They believed what they wanted to believe. If they thought humans were stupid, then being stupid was the best disguise he could have. That evening, Park Janu returned to the human quarters. 23 other humans lived on the station, all doing different jobs. The aliens housed them in a section that used to be a storage room. The beds were old and uncomfortable, but it gave the humans privacy to talk. "How did it go today?" asked Kim Nari. She worked in the station's trading post, selling supplies to visiting ships. The aliens thought she was harmless because she was always smiling and cheerful. "The cooling system was easy," Park Janu said. "I also installed another monitor in Sector 7. Kim Nari nodded. She understood what he meant. Over the past months, Park Janu had been placing small monitoring devices throughout the station. Each one copied data and sent it to a hidden network that only the humans knew about. "The cargo ship from Earth arrives tomorrow," said Lee T-Man. He worked in the communications center, translating messages between different alien languages. "They will bring new supplies?" "Good," Park Janu said. "We will need them soon." The other humans looked at him with understanding. They all knew that their time on the station was almost over. For months, they had been preparing for something big. Each human had a role to play, and each role looked innocent to the aliens. Watching them the next morning brought excitement to the station. A large Krillian warship had arrived, and its captain wanted to inspect the mining operation. The Vexstar were nervous because the Krillians were known for their military strength and bad temper. Park Janu was ordered to make sure all the systems were working perfectly. He spent the day checking every machine on the station. But while he worked, he also activated some of the hidden devices he had placed over the months, small changes to the programming. Tiny adjustments that would not be noticed right away. The Krillian captain was a huge alien with gray skin and sharp teeth. He walked through the station with several guards asking questions about the mining operation. The Vexstar overseer followed behind him, trying to impress him with stories about how productive the station was. "And what about security?" the captain asked. "We have the best systems money can buy," Decanol replied proudly. Nobody can break into our computers. Even if they tried, they would need to understand Vexstar technology, and only we know how it really works. Park Janu was close enough to hear this conversation. He almost smiled, but kept his face blank and continued working. The aliens had no idea that a human had been inside their most secure systems for months. The Krillian captain seemed satisfied with what he saw. Before leaving, he made one comment that caught Park Janu's attention. "Make sure your human workers stay in line," the captain said. "I have heard reports from other stations about humans causing trouble. Nothing serious, just small problems. But small problems can become big ones if you are not careful." Vecano laughed. "These humans? They are too simple to cause real trouble. Look at them. They can barely operate our basic tools." After the Krillian ship left, Park Janu thought about what he had heard. Other stations were having problems with humans. That meant the plan was working on a larger scale than just this one mining station. That night, Kim Nari brought news from the trading post. "I heard something interesting today," she said. "A trader from the inner systems mentioned that several alien facilities have been having computer problems lately. Nothing too serious, but enough to slow down their operations? Equipment failures?" asked Lee Tiemann. "That is what they think," Kim Nari replied. "But the problems are always different. Power systems in one place, communication networks in another, life support somewhere else. The aliens think it is just bad luck?" Park Janu knew it was not bad luck. It was humans working quietly in dozens of facilities across the galaxy. Each one learning alien technology, each one making small changes that would add up to something much bigger. 2 weeks later, the first major system failure hit the station. The main computer that controlled the mining equipment suddenly stopped working. Warning lights flashed everywhere and alarms started going off. Vecano rushed to the control room, shouting orders at his Vexstar technicians. They tried everything they could think of, but the system would not respond. Hours passed, and the entire mining operation ground to a halt. "What about the human?" suggested one of the technicians. "He knows the maintenance systems better than anyone." Vecano called for Park Janu. When he arrived, the overseer was desperate. "Can you fix this?" Vecano asked. Park Janu looked at the displays. He knew exactly what was wrong because he had programmed the failure himself. But he pretended to study the problem carefully. "I think I see the issue," he said finally, "but it will take time to fix, maybe several days." "Several days?" Deccanol shouted. "We are losing millions of credits every hour." Park Janu shrugged. "Vexstar technology is very complex. I can only work as fast as my simple human brain allows." Deccanol had no choice but to agree. As Park Janu began his repairs, he sent a coded message through the hidden network. 3 simple words: Phase 1 complete. In facilities across the galaxy, other humans received that message, and they began to understand that their long wait was finally over. The aliens still thought humans were simple and harmless. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. 3 days after the mining system failed, Park Janu was still working in the main control room. He moved slowly and carefully, checking each connection while the Vexstar watched him nervously. What they did not know was that he was actually making the problems worse. Every time Deccanol left the room, Park Janu would install another small device or change a few lines of code. The aliens saw him fixing things, but he was really preparing for the next phase of failures. How much longer? Deccanol demanded for the 10th time that day. "Almost finished," Park Janu replied. "Just need to test the backup systems." While he worked, another drama was playing out in deep space. Kim Nari had left the station 2 days earlier on a cargo ship, telling everyone she was going to buy supplies from the inner systems. But her real destination was the Zelthic Commerce Hub, one of the busiest trading centers in the galaxy. The Zelthic were a race of purple-skinned aliens who loved making deals and counting profits. They thought they were the smartest traders in the galaxy, and they looked down on humans as primitive creatures who barely understood money. Kim Nari's ship docked at the huge commercial station. She smiled and bowed politely to the Zelthic customs officer who checked her cargo. What do you have to trade, human? The officer asked with barely hidden contempt. Just some simple items from Earth, Kimnari said, opening her cargo containers. Art pieces, tools, some electronic devices. Nothing too advanced. The Zelthic officer looked through her goods and laughed. The items looked crude and simple compared to Zelthic technology. There were wooden sculptures, metal trinkets, and small electronic devices that seemed to do nothing but flash colored lights. You can set up in Section C, the officer said. That is where we put the primitive goods that nobody really wants. Kimnari thanked him and took her cargo to the assigned section. Within hours, she had set up a small shop filled with her primitive human goods. Zelthic merchants walking by would stop, laugh at the simple items, and move on to more sophisticated shops, but a few Zelthic were curious enough to buy some of the human items. They thought the wooden sculptures were amusing, and the electronic devices might be interesting toys for their children. They paid very small amounts, treating the purchases as jokes rather than serious transactions. Kimnari smiled and accepted their money gratefully. What the Zelthic did not know was that every item they bought contained advanced nanotechnology hidden inside the primitive appearance. As soon as the items were taken to different parts of the station, they began connecting to the Zelthic computer networks. The wooden sculptures contained processors more advanced than anything the Zelthic had ever seen. The metal trinkets were actually sophisticated transmitters. The electronic toys began mapping the station's entire information system. Copying passwords and security codes. Back at the mining station, Park Janu was ready for the next step. He had spent 3 days making sure that every system on the station was connected to his hidden network. Now it was time to show the Vexstar what real system failure looked like. I think I have found the problem, he announced to Thekanal. Let me try restarting the main system. Park Jinu pressed a few buttons on the control panel. For a moment, everything seemed to work. The displays lit up, the warning alarm stopped, and the mining equipment began moving again. Finally, Thekanal said with relief. I knew you could fix it, human. But the relief lasted only 30 seconds. Suddenly, every alarm on the station started screaming at once. The lights went out, then came back on, then went out again. The mining equipment stopped working. The air recycling system shut down. Even the food preparation units in the cafeteria stopped functioning. What is happening? Thekanal shouted. Park Janu looked at the displays with fake confusion. I do not understand. Everything was working a moment ago. The truth was that Park Janu had activated a cascade failure program. Each system on the station was designed to have backup systems in case of emergency, but Park Janu had reprogrammed those backups to fail in sequence, creating a chain reaction that would shut down the entire station. The Vexstar technicians ran around frantically, trying to fix each problem as it appeared. But as soon as they fixed one system, 2 more would fail. They were fighting a losing battle against an enemy they could not even see. The backup power is failing, one technician reported. Life support is down to emergency power only, said another. The communication system is not responding, said a third. Thekanal looked at Park Janu with growing suspicion. You said you could fix this. I am trying, Park Janu said, pretending to work frantically at the control panel. But the problems keep getting worse. Maybe the system damage is more serious than I thought. What Park Janu did not tell them was that he had also programmed the station's communication system to send a message to every human on nearby stations. The message was simple: begin Phase 2. At the same time, Kimnari was watching the Zelthic Commerce Hub begin its own cascade of failures. The nanotechnology hidden in her goods had spent 2 days quietly infiltrating the station's networks. Now, it was time to activate. The first sign of trouble was in the financial systems. Traders trying to complete deals found that their accounts were showing strange numbers. Some accounts appeared to have 0 credits, while others showed impossible amounts. Technical difficulties, the Zelthic administrators announced. Please be patient while we fix the problem. But the problem spread quickly. The station's artificial gravity began fluctuating, making some areas weightless while others had double gravity. The temperature controls failed, making some sections too hot and others too cold. The docking systems malfunctioned, trapping ships that were trying to leave. Kim Nari watched the chaos from her small shop, still smiling politely as confused Zelthic customers asked her what was happening. "I am just a simple human trader," she said. "I do not understand advanced technology like yours." The irony was not lost on her. The Zelthic had always claimed that humans were too primitive to understand real technology. Now their advanced systems were being destroyed by technology so advanced that they could not even detect it. By the end of the day, both stations were in complete chaos. The Vexstar mining station had lost all primary systems and was running on emergency power. The Zelthic Commerce Hub had been forced to shut down all trading operations while they tried to figure out what was wrong with their computers. In both places, the aliens were beginning to ask the same question: could this really be a coincidence? On the mining station, the shuttle gathered his technicians for an emergency meeting. "Has anyone seen the human recently?" he asked. The technicians looked around. Park Janu had quietly disappeared during the chaos, along with all of his tools and personal belongings. "Search the station," the colonel ordered. "Find him." But the search found nothing. Park Janu had vanished completely, as if he had never been there at all. The only thing he left behind was a simple message written on a piece of paper and stuck to the main control panel. The message said, "You should have listened." At the Zelthic Commerce Hub, Kimnari was also preparing to leave. She packed up her remaining goods and headed for her ship. The docking systems were malfunctioning, but somehow her ship was able to launch without any problems. As she flew away from the crippled station, she sent a message to the Zelthic traffic control. "Thank you for your business. I hope you learned something about human technology." The Zelthic controller who received the message stared at it in confusion. What could a primitive human possibly teach them about technology? He was about to find out. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out at dozens of other facilities. Humans who had been working quietly as servants, repair workers, and traders were suddenly revealing abilities that shocked their alien employers. Systems that had worked perfectly for years were failing in ways that made no sense. And in every case, the humans were disappearing, leaving behind only questions and the growing realization that something much bigger was happening. The aliens had always believed that humans were simple creatures who got lucky occasionally. They were about to discover that luck had nothing to do with it. The Galactic Hegemony Council met in the grandest building on the capital world of Zentara Prime. Representatives from 12 different alien species sat in a huge circular chamber, each trying to look more important than the others. At the center of the chamber stood a small human figure who seemed completely out of place among the towering aliens. Lee Tiemann adjusted his simple black suit and looked up at the council members with nervous respect. He had been Earth's diplomatic representative for 3 years, and the aliens still treated him like a child who had wandered into an adult meeting. "The council will now hear the human representative," announced Chancellor Vexamor, a tall alien with silver skin and 4 arms. His voice echoed through the chamber with practiced authority. Lee Tiemann bowed deeply. "Thank you, honored Chancellor. I bring greetings from Earth and hope for continued peaceful cooperation between our species." Several council members made sounds that might have been laughter. The Krillian representative, General Zakthal, leaned forward in his seat. "Human, we are not here to exchange pleasantries," he said in a voice like grinding metal. "We are here to discuss the problems your species has been causing across the galaxy." "Problems?" Lee Tiemann asked, his face showing genuine confusion. "I was not aware that humans had caused any problems. We have always tried to follow galactic law and respect the authority of the hegemony." "System failures," said the Zelthic representative, Merchant Prince Valtar. "Multiple facilities have reported computer malfunctions and equipment breakdowns. In each case, humans were present at the affected locations." Lee Tiemann nodded thoughtfully. "That is troubling news. However, I must point out that humans work at thousands of facilities across the galaxy. We are often employed for maintenance and repair work because of our small size and willingness to work in difficult conditions. It would be statistically impossible for system failures not to occur at some locations where humans are present. The logic was sound, and several council members murmured agreement. But the Vexstar representative, Overseer Primedek Volume, was not convinced. This is more than coincidence, he insisted. The failures are too sophisticated, too coordinated. Someone with advanced technical knowledge is causing these problems? Lee Tiemann looked genuinely surprised. Surely you do not suspect humans of having such advanced knowledge? Our technology is primitive compared to yours? We still struggle to understand the basic principles of galactic standard computing systems. This statement reinforced what the aliens wanted to believe about humans. They nodded and made sounds of agreement. Of course, humans could not be responsible for sophisticated sabotage. They barely understood their own technology, much less alien systems, but while Lee Tiemann spoke, he was also doing something else. Hidden in his words were carefully chosen phrases that sounded like normal diplomatic language but were actually coded instructions. Each phrase activated sleeping programs in computer systems across the galaxy. When he said peaceful cooperation, it meant begin surveillance mode. When he mentioned following galactic law, it activated communication. Intercepts. The phrase, respect the authority, started financial system monitoring. The aliens heard polite diplomatic talk. But humans working in facilities across the galaxy received detailed instructions about their next objectives. What do you propose we do about these incidents? Asked the Altarian representative, Ambassador Zelenoth. Lee Tiemann spread his hands in a gesture of helplessness. Earth offers complete cooperation in any investigation. We will share all information about human workers and their activities. We want to help solve these problems as much as you do. Chancellor Vexamir seemed pleased with this response. That is the attitude we expect from junior species. You will provide complete records of all human personnel working off Earth, their locations, and their duties. Of course, Lee Tiemann agreed immediately. Though I should mention that our record-keeping systems are quite primitive, it may take some time to compile complete information. What he did not mention was that those primitive records were actually sophisticated databases that had been tracking alien activities for years. The humans knew exactly where every alien facility was located, who was in charge, and what their security weaknesses were. While the council continued their discussion, Lee Tiemann noticed movement in the gallery above. A young human woman was setting up what appeared to be an art display. The aliens paid no attention to her. Thinking she was just a harmless cultural exchange student, the woman was Troy Huna, and her art installation was actually a sophisticated scanning system. As she arranged her sculptures and paintings, hidden sensors were mapping the entire council chamber. Every computer terminal, every communication device, every security system was being analyzed and cataloged. The aliens were so focused on their important discussion that they never noticed the quiet human woman documenting their most secure facility. I propose we increase monitoring of human activities, suggested the Drakmarian representative. Perhaps assign alien supervisors to watch them more closely. Lee Tiemann nodded eagerly. That sounds like an excellent idea. Earth would welcome closer cooperation with hegemony oversight. We have nothing to hide. This was exactly what he wanted them to think. The more they focused on watching humans openly, the less they would notice what humans were really doing in the shadows. The discussion continued for hours. The aliens talked about human limitations, human primitive thinking, and human inability to understand advanced concepts. With each dismissive comment, they reinforced their own blind spots and made themselves more vulnerable to the very threats they were trying to prevent. Finally, Chancellor Vexamir called for a vote. All in favor of increased monitoring of human activities and mandatory reporting of any unusual incidents? Every alien representative raised their hand or appendage. The motion passed unanimously. Earth accepts this decision with gratitude, Lee Tiemann said, bowing again. We understand that the hegemony is only trying to protect galactic peace and stability. As the council session ended, Lee Tiemann gathered his papers and prepared to leave. But before going, he made one final statement. "I hope that our continued cooperation will help prevent any future misunderstandings," he said. "Earth looks forward to a long and peaceful relationship with all member species of the hegemony." The phrase "long and peaceful relationship" was the final coded instruction. Across the galaxy, human operatives received the message: proceed to Phase 3. While Lee Tiemann left the council chamber, Choi Hyuna was finishing her art installation. The aliens who noticed her work complimented her on the primitive but charming human artistic style. They had no idea that her sculptures contained quantum processors, and her paintings were actually advanced display screens. "Thank you for allowing me to share human culture," she said politely to the Altarian ambassador who had stopped to look at her work. "It is always interesting to see how less advanced species express themselves," the ambassador replied with condescending kindness. Choi Hyuna smiled and nodded. Inside her head, she was thinking about how those same, less advanced species had just mapped every important building on the capital world. The art installation would remain in place for weeks, quietly copying every piece of information that passed through the government district. That evening, Lee Tiemann returned to the human embassy, a small building that the aliens had allowed Earth to establish. It was much smaller and less impressive than the other diplomatic facilities, reflecting humanity's low status in galactic politics. But beneath the embassy, in rooms that did not appear on any official plans, Lee Tiemann met with other human operatives. The basement levels contained communication equipment that was decades ahead of anything the aliens possessed. "How did the council session go?" asked Colonel Kim Min-ho, Earth's real military attaché. Officially, he was listed as a cultural liaison officer. "Perfectly," Lee Tiemann replied. "They voted to increase monitoring of human activities. They still believe we are too primitive to be a real threat. And the activation codes? All delivered successfully. Hyuna confirmed that her scanning systems are in place and operational. We now have complete blueprints of their government center." Kim Min-ho smiled grimly. "The aliens are so proud of their superior intelligence, but they never learned the most important lesson about intelligence gathering, which is, the best way to hide is to make your enemies think you are exactly what they expect you to be." Lee Tiemann nodded. For 3 years he had played the role of a nervous, humble human diplomat who was grateful for any attention from the important aliens. He had been dismissed, ignored, and patronized in hundreds of meetings, and during all of those meetings, he had been gathering intelligence, placing operatives, and preparing for the day when humanity would stop pretending to be harmless. That day was coming very soon. In facilities across the galaxy, human workers were receiving their new instructions. The time for subtle sabotage was ending. Soon, it would be time for the aliens to learn what humans could really do when they stopped holding back. But first, they had to eliminate the few aliens who had begun to suspect the truth. After all, there needed to be no one left to warn the others. Admiral Vexcron stood on the bridge of the battleship Dominator, watching the stars through the massive viewing screen. His gray skin was marked with the scars of many battles, and his yellow eyes held the cold intelligence of a military mind that had never known defeat. The Krillian fleet under his command was the most powerful military force in the galaxy. 50 warships, each one capable of destroying entire planets. For 200 years, no enemy had been able to stand against Krillian military might. "Admiral," called his communications officer, "we are receiving more reports of system failures across multiple sectors." Vexcron turned from the viewing screen. "How many incidents now?" 17 confirmed, sir. Mining stations, commercial hubs, research facilities. All reporting unexplained computer malfunctions and equipment failures. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "And humans were present at all of these locations?" "Yes, sir." "But the local authorities believe it is coincidence. Humans work at many facilities throughout the galaxy." Vexcron made a sound of disgust. "Fools, there is no such thing as coincidence on this scale." He walked to his command chair and sat down heavily. "What is the status of the investigation ordered by the Hegemony Council?" They have assigned additional supervisors to monitor human activities. But so far, no evidence of deliberate sabotage has been found. Of course not, Vexcron said, because they are looking for the wrong thing. They expect sabotage to be obvious, violent, destructive. But what if the humans are more clever than anyone believes? The bridge crew exchanged glances. It was dangerous to disagree with the Admiral, but his suggestion seemed impossible. Everyone knew that humans were primitive creatures with limited intelligence. Sir, ventured the tactical officer, human technology is centuries behind ours. They barely understand basic principles of space travel and computing. How could they possibly what? Vexcron interrupted. 'Cause problems. For their superiors? You forget that humans are the only species that actively fought against galactic civilization when we first contacted them. Every other species submitted peacefully or was conquered quickly. Humans fought for 50 years before they finally surrendered. This was true, though most aliens preferred not to think about it. The human wars had been brutal and costly, ending only when Earth's population was exhausted and their planet devastated. But even in defeat, humans had shown a disturbing ability to adapt and survive. Bring me the human prisoner, Vexcron ordered. 2. Guards left the bridge and returned a few minutes later with a human male. Sun Minho was thin and dirty, wearing the gray uniform of a military prisoner. His hands were shackled, and his head was bent in apparent submission. Ah, the human spy, Vexcron said with satisfaction. Still maintaining your innocence, I suppose? Sun Minho raised his head slowly. His face showed the effects of months of imprisonment, but his eyes were alert. I have told you many times, Admiral, I am not a spy. I was just a maintenance worker. On the supply station when your forces captured it. Yes, a maintenance worker, Vexcron repeated mockingly. Just like all the other humans who seem to be present whenever equipment mysteriously fails. He stood up and walked closer to the prisoner. Tell me, human, what do you know about the recent incidents across the galaxy? I know only what I have heard from the guards, Sun Minho replied. Some kind of technical problems, they said. But I am a simple worker. I do not understand complicated things like that. Vexcron studied the human's face carefully. The words sounded innocent, but something in the man's eyes suggested intelligence beyond what he was pretending to show. Perhaps, the Admiral said. Slowly, it is time to make an example of your species. To show the galaxy what happens to those who cause problems for their betters. Sir? Asked the tactical officer. Set course for the Sol System, Vexcron commanded. It is time to remind Earth of its place in the galactic order. You want to attack Earth, sir? Not attack, Vexcron corrected. Discipline. We will destroy their orbital stations and space-based infrastructure. Let them see what happens when primitives try to challenge advanced civilizations. The bridge crew began carrying out their orders, but Sun Minho spoke up from where he stood between his guards. Admiral, surely you do not believe that Earth is responsible for technical problems on alien stations. My people lack the knowledge to cause such sophisticated failures. Vexcron turned back to the human. Do they, or do they simply want everyone to think they lack such knowledge? Sun Minho's face showed what appeared to be genuine confusion. I do not understand what you mean. Of course you do not, Vexcron said. Take him back to his cell, but keep him alive. I want him to watch when we destroy his species' orbital defenses. As the guards led Sun Minho away, the human prisoner allowed himself a small smile that no one could see. For 8 months, he had been playing the role of a broken prisoner who had given up all hope. The Krillians had interrogated him dozens of times, but they always asked the wrong questions. They wanted to know about Earth's military capabilities, which were genuinely primitive compared to alien technology. They never asked about human intelligence, networks, infiltration techniques, or long-term strategic planning. They assumed that a species with inferior technology must also have inferior minds. Sun Minho had used those 8 months well. While pretending to be a defeated prisoner, he had actually been studying Krillian military technology from the inside. Every day, the guards took him through different sections of the ship for exercise and interrogation. Every day, he memorized new details about their systems. The Krillians had sensors that could detect any physical device, so Sun Minho carried no equipment. But they could not detect the modifications he had made to his own brain before being captured, tiny biological implants that enhanced his memory and allowed him to process information far beyond normal human limits. Back in his cell, Sun Minho began accessing the ship's computer network. Not through any external device, but through microscopic transmitters that he had been placing throughout the ship during his months of captivity. Each transmitter was made of biological material that the Krillian sensors registered as harmless. Human skin cells. The transmitters had been slowly building a hidden network inside the Dominator. A network that gave Sun Minho access to every computer system on the ship. As the Krillian fleet changed course toward Earth, Sun Minho sent a coded message through space. The message would reach Yang Sora at her hidden monitoring station within hours. Yang Sora was officially listed as a research assistant at a remote scientific outpost. In reality, she was one of Earth's most skilled intelligence analysts, and her research station was actually a sophisticated command center capable of coordinating human operations across multiple star systems. When she received Sun Minho's message, Yang Sora immediately understood what it meant. The Krillian fleet was moving toward Earth, and they intended to attack humanity's orbital infrastructure. This was exactly what Earth's planners had been hoping for. Yang Sora sent activation signals to 17 different locations. At each location, humans who had been working quietly in alien facilities received the same instruction. Fleet engagement protocols are now active. The humans receiving these messages had been waiting for this moment for years. They were embedded in alien military bases, communication centers, and supply depots throughout the galaxy. When the Krillian fleet moved against Earth, they would discover that their support systems had suddenly become unreliable. Meanwhile, Sun Minho continued his work aboard the Dominator. He had identified the key systems that controlled the ships: weapons, navigation, and communications. More importantly, he had learned how those systems connected to the other ships in the fleet. Krillian military doctrine emphasized central command and coordination. All 50 ships in the fleet were linked through a sophisticated communication network that allowed Admiral Vexcron to control the entire force from his flagship. It was an efficient system that had won many battles. It was also a vulnerability that Sun Minho had spent 8 months learning to exploit. As the fleet approached the outer edge of the Sol system, Vexcron prepared to demonstrate Krillian superiority. He planned to destroy Earth's orbital stations one by one, forcing humanity to watch as their space-based civilization crumbled. "Sir," reported the sensor operator, "we are detecting Earth's defensive satellites. As expected, they are primitive and pose no real threat." "Good," Vexcron said. "Open a communication channel to Earth. I want them to know what is about to happen to them. Channel open, sir." "People of Earth," Vexcron announced, "this is Admiral Vexcron of the Krillian Imperial Fleet. Your species has been causing problems across the galaxy, and it is time for you to face consequences. We will now destroy your orbital infrastructure to remind you of your proper place in the galactic order." The response from Earth came quickly. A calm human voice said, "Admiral Vexcron, this is Earth Defense Command. We urge you to reconsider." "Your course of action?" Vexcron laughed. "Reconsider? You have nothing that could threaten a Krillian battle fleet. Prepare to witness the price of challenging your superiors." "Admiral," the human voice replied, "we believe you are making a mistake." "The only mistake," Vexcron said, "would be showing mercy to a species that does not understand discipline." Across the galaxy, in facilities that the aliens considered secure and unimportant, humans were receiving the same message at exactly the same time. It came through hidden networks that had been years in the making, transmitted by communication systems that the aliens could not detect. The message was simple: the network awakens. Begin final phase. Oh Jinho received the message while sitting at his data terminal in the central archives of Drakmaria Prime for 3 years. He had worked as a lowly file clerk, organizing information that the Drakmarians considered too boring for their own people to handle. They gave him this job because humans were known to be patient with repetitive tasks. What the Drakmarians did not know was that Junho was one of Earth's most skilled intelligence analysts. While organizing their boring files, he had been mapping the power structure of their entire civilization. He knew which families controlled which industries, where their critical resources were stored, and how their government made decisions. More importantly, he had been copying everything. The Drakmarian archives contained information about every major alien civilization in the galaxy. Military plans, economic data, technological specifications, diplomatic secrets. The Drakmarians had collected it all over centuries of careful intelligence gathering. Now it all belonged to humanity. Junheo stood up from his terminal and walked calmly to the emergency exits. As he walked, he activated hidden programs that began copying the entire contents of the archives to human databases on dozens of worlds. The Drakmarians would not notice the data transfer for hours, and by then it would be too late to stop it. At the same time, on a research station orbiting the gas giant Vorthuk, Kang Yunji was receiving her own version of the awakening message. She had spent 2 years working as a xenobiologist, supposedly studying how different alien species adapted to various environments. The aliens had found this research useful because it helped them design better life support systems for multi-species facilities. They never suspected that Kang Yunji was actually developing something much more dangerous. While studying alien biology, she had created synthetic viruses that could target specific alien technologies. The viruses were designed to attack the biological components that many alien computers used for processing. They would shut down technology without harming organic life, making them the perfect non-lethal weapon. Kang Yunji activated the release systems that she had been installing throughout the research station for months. Microscopic canisters began dispersing her bioengineered viruses into the station's air supply. Within hours, every computer on the station would be infected. The irony was perfect. The aliens had been studying human biology for years, trying to understand how humans could be so adaptable and resilient. Now, human-created biology was about to shut down their most advanced systems. On the mining world of Kalthara, Park Sun-ho was ending his shift in the equipment maintenance department. For 18 months, he had been just another human worker, fixing broken machinery and keeping the mining operation running smoothly. But Park Sun-ho was actually a former Earth military engineer who had volunteered for this deep cover assignment. While maintaining alien equipment, he had been learning how to destroy it more effectively than anyone had thought possible. When the awakening message arrived, Park Sun-ho began implementing the final stage of his sabotage plan. Using tools and techniques that would have impressed alien engineers, he systematically destroyed the mining world's most critical systems. But he did it in a way that would look like natural equipment failure rather than deliberate sabotage. Power generators developed mysterious problems that caused them to shut down unexpectedly. Water recycling systems began producing contaminated output. Transportation networks failed as their control computers stopped responding to commands. Within 6 hours, the entire mining operation ground to a halt. Thousands of alien workers found themselves stranded on a world that could no longer support them. Similar scenes were playing out on hundreds of worlds across the galaxy. Humans who had seemed harmless and insignificant were revealing themselves as sophisticated operatives with capabilities that shocked their alien supervisors. At the Zelthic Banking Consortium headquarters, Lee Min-jae had spent 4 years working as a junior accountant. The Zelthic had hired her because humans were known to be honest and hardworking, perfect qualities for handling routine financial transactions. What they did not know was that Lee Min-jae had been gradually gaining access to the banking systems that controlled the galactic economy. While processing routine transactions, she had been mapping the financial relationships between every major corporation and government in known space. When the awakening message arrived, Lee Min-jae activated programs that began transferring enormous amounts of credits between accounts, not stealing the money, but redirecting it in ways that would cause maximum chaos. Government accounts found their funds frozen. Corporate accounts were emptied and refilled randomly. The carefully balanced galactic economy began collapsing as no one could trust their financial data. On the pleasure world of Altara 7, Yang Jiwan had been working as an entertainment coordinator for wealthy alien tourists. Her job was to organize parties and social events for visitors who wanted to experience primitive human culture. The aliens loved these events because they made them feel sophisticated and superior. They would drink exotic beverages and watch humans perform traditional dances. Laughing at how simple and quaint it all seemed, Yang Jiwan had smiled and played her role perfectly, while secretly documenting every important alien who attended her events. She recorded their conversations, photographed their private meetings, and learned their personal secrets. When the awakening message came, Yang Jiwan released all of this information simultaneously. Compromising recordings of alien leaders discussing illegal activities, evidence of corruption and secret deals, personal scandals that would destroy careers and bring down governments. The galactic news networks exploded with revelations that sent shock waves through every major civilization. Trust between alien species began breaking down as they realized how much their leaders had been hiding from them. But perhaps the most devastating revelation came from Choi Soyan, who had been working as a maintenance technician aboard the galaxy's largest communication relay station. This station handled information transfer between all major alien civilizations, making it the nerve center of galactic civilization. Choi Soyan had spent 3 years learning how the relay systems worked, while appearing to be just another human worker who barely understood the technology she was maintaining. In reality, she had been preparing to take control of the entire galactic communication network. When the awakening message arrived, Choi Soyan activated hidden programs that gave her complete access to every message being sent between alien governments, military forces, and corporations. More importantly, she gained the ability to modify those messages before they reached their destinations. Orders from alien military commanders were changed in subtle ways that created confusion and conflict. Economic negotiations were sabotaged by altering the terms at the last moment. Diplomatic messages were modified to create misunderstandings between former allies. Within hours, alien civilizations across the galaxy found themselves unable to communicate effectively with each other. They were receiving conflicting information, contradictory orders, and messages that made no sense. The most shocking revelation came when Choi Soyan broadcasted a message to every alien facility in the galaxy simultaneously. The message showed footage of humans working in hundreds of different locations, all revealing advanced capabilities that contradicted everything the aliens believed about human limitations. The message was narrated by a calm human voice that sighed. For years you have believed that humans are primitive and harmless. You have used us as servants and laborers, never suspecting what we were really capable of. You were wrong. The footage showed Park Jin-woo demonstrating advanced engineering skills that surpassed alien capabilities. Kim Nari revealing nanotechnology that was decades ahead of anything the aliens possessed. Sun Minho explaining how he had been controlling Krillian military systems from his prison cell. Every human you dismissed as simple or stupid was actually gathering intelligence about your weaknesses, the voice continued. Every system failure you attributed to coincidence was actually carefully planned sabotage. Every primitive human tool or custom that made you laugh contained technology you could not even detect. The message concluded with a simple statement: you should have treated us as equals. Now you will learn what it means to be treated as inferiors. As the message ended, alien leaders across the galaxy began to understand the scope of what was happening. This was not a random series of accidents or a small-scale rebellion. This was a coordinated operation that had been planned for years and involved humans on hundreds of worlds. The humans had been patient, careful, and thorough. They had learned everything there was to know about alien civilizations while revealing nothing about their own true capabilities. But the most terrifying realization was yet to come. As alien intelligence services began investigating the scope of human infiltration, they discovered something that chilled them to their cores. Every alien who... The panic began on Vexstar Prime when their homeworld's automated systems started failing in sequence. Traffic control networks crashed, leaving thousands of flying vehicles stranded in the air. Power grids shut down in random patterns, plunging entire cities into darkness. The planetary defense grid went offline completely, leaving the world vulnerable for the first time in centuries. Overseer Prime Neck Volume stood in the emergency command center, watching displays that showed the systematic collapse of his civilization's infrastructure. Red warning lights blinked everywhere, and the sound of alarms filled the air. "How many systems are affected?" he demanded. "All of them, sir," reported his chief technician, her voice shaking with fear. "Everything controlled by computer is either failing or behaving erratically. It is as if the machines have turned against us." "That is impossible," Neck Volume insisted. "Our computers use quantum encryption that cannot be broken. No outside force could penetrate our security." "Unless," said another technician quietly, "the security was compromised from the inside." Neck Volume turned to stare at him. "What do you mean?" "Sir, we have employed thousands of humans in maintenance and support roles across our worlds. What if they were not the simple workers we believed them to be?" The idea seemed impossible, but as reports continued to pour in from across Vexstar space, a terrifying pattern became clear. Every facility that employed human workers was experiencing catastrophic system failures. Facilities that had no human workers remained unaffected. "Get me Admiral Vexcron," Neck Volume ordered. "The Krillians need to know what is happening here." But the communication attempt failed. The long-range transmitters that connected Vexstar Prime to the rest of the galaxy had gone silent. The planet was completely isolated. Meanwhile, in the Krillian Empire, Admiral Vexcron was dealing with his own crisis. His great fleet was still floating helplessly in space near Earth, their weapon systems completely useless. Worse, reports were coming in from Krillian worlds that their military infrastructure was collapsing. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we have lost contact with 17 military bases. The remaining bases report that their computer systems are behaving unpredictably. What about the homeworld?" "Krillia Prime is..." "Sir, the reports are confused. Something about the planetary defense grid attacking our own ships." Vexcron felt a chill run through his body. The Krillian planetary defense system was the most sophisticated military network in the galaxy. If it had been compromised, then no Krillian world was safe. "How is this possible?" he asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. "Sir," said Sun Minho from where he stood under guard on the bridge, "perhaps I can explain." Every alien on the bridge turned to look at the human prisoner. Sun Minho no longer appeared broken or submissive. He stood straight and confident, and his eyes held an intelligence that made the aliens uncomfortable. "You are just a maintenance worker," Vexcron said, but his voice lacked conviction. "No," Sun Minho replied calmly. "I am Colonel Sun Minho of Earth Military Intelligence. I have been studying your technology for 8 months, learning how to turn your own weapons against you." The bridge crew stared at him in shock. The simple human prisoner had just revealed himself as an enemy military officer. "That is impossible," the tactical officer protested. "We scanned you for any devices or implants. You have no way to access our computers." Sun Minho smiled. "You scanned for alien technology? You never thought to look for human biotechnology that your sensors cannot detect." He raised his hands, and the shackles that had held him for months simply fell away. "Did you really think primitive humans could not find a way to break simple metal restraints?" Before anyone could react, Sun Minho activated the hidden network he had been building throughout the ship. Every display on the bridge suddenly showed the same message: "Human Liberation Protocol active." "What have you done?" Vexcron demanded. "I have given your ships new orders," Sun Minho replied. "They are now under human control. Your weapons will not fire at Earth, but they will fire at each other if any of you try to escape." As if to demonstrate his point, warning alarms began sounding throughout the fleet. The ship's computers were reporting targeting locks from other vessels in the formation. On Zelphic Prime, the consequences of human infiltration were becoming clear in a different way. The planet's economy had collapsed completely as the banking systems that Zelphic civilization depended on fell into chaos. Merchant Prince Veltar stood in his emergency conference room, surrounded by panicked advisors who were trying to make sense of the financial catastrophe that had destroyed their world overnight. "How much have we lost?" he asked. "Everything," replied his chief financial officer. "All trading accounts have been frozen or emptied. The currency exchange systems are reporting impossible values. No one can buy or sell anything because no one knows what anything is worth anymore. Who could do this to us? Our financial networks were supposed to be impregnable." "Sir," said a security advisor hesitantly, "we may have been infiltrated by human agents." The banking consortium employed hundreds of humans in various positions. If they had been working together— Veltar's purple skin turned a darker shade as he realized the implications. "You mean the humans we hired to do simple accounting work were actually sophisticated financial specialists?" "It appears so, sir. They would have had access to learn our systems over several years of employment. If they had been planning this operation for a long time." The conversation was interrupted by an emergency broadcast that appeared on every screen in the building. It showed a human woman sitting calmly in what appeared to be a normal office. "My name is Li Minjie," the woman said. "For 4 years I have worked in your banking consortium, learning how your economy functions. I have gained complete control of your financial systems, and I can shut down your entire civilization with a few keystrokes." Veltar and his advisors watched in horror as Li Minjie demonstrated her control by making random numbers appear on their own computer screens. "Your people treated me as a simple worker who could barely understand basic mathematics," she continued. "You never suspected that I hold advanced degrees in economic theory and system engineering. You saw what you expected to see, a primitive human who was grateful for whatever work you gave her." The broadcast shifted to show similar messages from humans across the galaxy. Each one revealed themselves as highly skilled specialists who had been operating under false identities for years on Drachmaria Prime. Oh Junho appeared on government screens to announce that he had copied their entire intelligence database and was broadcasting it to every other civilization in the galaxy. Secrets that the Drachmarians had spent centuries collecting were now public knowledge. On the research station above Vorthak, Kong Yunji explained how her bioengineered viruses had shut down alien technology across dozens of systems. She demonstrated by making the lights in her laboratory turn on and off at will from the communication relay station. Choi Soyan revealed that she had been monitoring and modifying messages between alien governments for months. Half the diplomatic crises and military conflicts of the past year had been caused by her subtle alterations to important communications, but the most shocking revelation came from Onjiho, who appeared simultaneously on screens across the galaxy. Unlike the other humans, he was not sitting in an alien facility. He was standing in what appeared to be a sophisticated military command center filled with advanced technology. "I am General Onjiho of Earth Strategic Command," he announced. "For the past 5 years, I have been coordinating humanity's liberation operation. Every human you believe to be a simple worker, servant, or prisoner was actually a trained operative following my orders." The camera pulled back to show the full scale of the command center. Hundreds of humans were working at advanced computer stations, monitoring the collapse of alien civilizations across the galaxy. "You believe that humans were primitive because our technology appeared crude compared to yours," Onjiho continued. "But you never realized that we were deliberately hiding our true capabilities. Every piece of primitive human equipment contained technology decades ahead of your most advanced systems." He gestured to a large display that showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of alien facilities that had been compromised. There were thousands of them. "While you dismissed us as inferiors, we studied you. We learned your weaknesses, copied your technologies, and improved upon them. We planted our people in your most sensitive facilities and waited for the right moment to strike. The display changed to show real-time footage from alien worlds, cities in darkness as power grids failed, ships drifting helplessly in space as their navigation systems shut down, government buildings evacuated as their communication networks collapsed. You had the chance to treat us as equals, Anjiho said. Instead, you chose to see us as servants and tools. Now you will learn what it means to be powerless. The broadcast ended with a simple message that appeared on every screen in the galaxy. Humanity is no longer asking for equal treatment. We are taking control. Across hundreds of worlds, alien leaders finally understood the scope of what was happening. This was not a rebellion or an uprising. This was a conquest that had been planned and executed with Patti. In the ruins of the Galactic Hegemony Council chamber on Zentara Prime, Chancellor Veximer tried desperately to contact anyone who might help coordinate a response to the human uprising. But every communication attempt failed. The networks that had connected alien civilizations for centuries were either destroyed or under human control. "Sir," reported his aide, "we are receiving scattered transmissions from emergency broadcasts across the galaxy. All major alien civilizations are reporting the same crisis. Their computer systems have been compromised, their military forces are disabled, and their economies have collapsed." Veximer slumped in his chair, finally understanding the scope of the disaster. "How many species are affected?" "All of them, sir. Every member of the hegemony, plus independent civilizations that never joined our alliance. The humans seem to have infiltrated everyone. What about the Zenthran Collective?" "They never employed humans in any significant numbers." The aide checked his reports. "The Zenthrans are gone, sir." "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" "Their homeworld is not responding to any communication attempts. Long-range sensors show their orbital stations abandoned and their planet's surface dark. No signs of life." Veximer felt a chill of fear unlike anything he had experienced in his long political career. How is that possible? The Zenthrans had a population of billions. "Sir," the aide said quietly, "there are reports that several species have simply disappeared, not just their governments or military forces, but entire populations, as if they never existed." The truth was far more systematic and terrifying than Chancellor Veximer could imagine. For years, Earth's intelligence services had been identifying alien individuals who showed signs of understanding human capabilities. Scientists who noticed patterns in equipment failures, military officers who questioned whether sabotage might be involved, government officials who suggested that humans might be more dangerous than they appeared. Each of these individuals had been carefully tracked and monitored. When they got too close to discovering the truth about human operations, they simply vanished. Dr. Zelthara had been an Altarian xenopsychologist who specialized in studying human behavior. 3 months ago, she had published a research paper suggesting that humans might be deliberately hiding their true intelligence levels. She had presented evidence that human responses to intelligence tests were too consistent to be natural, as if they were following a script designed to produce specific results. 2 weeks after her paper was published, Dr. Zelthara disappeared from her laboratory. Her colleagues found no signs of struggle or forced entry. She had simply ceased to exist, along with all copies of her research. Commander Zekvar of the Vexstar Navy had begun investigating the pattern of equipment failures at facilities that employed humans. His analysis had identified statistical anomalies that suggested coordination between incidents across multiple star systems. He had prepared a report recommending increased security around human workers the night before he was scheduled to present his findings to Vexstar High Command. Commander Zekvar vanished from his quarters aboard a heavily guarded military station. Security recordings showed nothing unusual. He had gone to sleep in his bed and was simply gone in the morning, the pattern repeated hundreds of times across the galaxy. Anyone who got too close to understanding what humans were really doing would disappear without a trace. Their research would vanish, their data would be corrupted, and their colleagues would gradually forget that they had ever existed. The humans had not just been infiltrating alien systems. They had been systematically eliminating anyone who might warn others about the growing threat. Professor Kendall of the Drakmarian Science Institute had been the closest to discovering the truth. She had spent 2 years analyzing the biosignatures of humans working in various facilities, and had noticed subtle genetic modifications that suggested advanced biotechnology. Her research indicated that many humans possessed implants and enhancements that were far beyond anything in the official records of human technology. She had begun to suspect that Earth's apparent technological limitations were a carefully maintained deception. The night before she was scheduled to present her findings to the Galactic Scientific Council, Professor Kindle's entire research facility experienced a complete system failure. When backup power was restored 12 hours later, the facility was empty. Not just of people, but of all equipment, data, and any evidence that research had ever been conducted there. Local authorities investigated, but found no trace of what had happened. The facility appeared to have been cleaned with a thoroughness that erased all evidence of its previous use. Even the building's construction records had been altered to suggest it had always been empty. But the most chilling discovery came when investigators tried to contact Professor Kendall's colleagues and assistants. None of them could be found. Attempts to access their personal records showed that no one by those names had ever existed in the Drakmarian database. It was as if Professor Kendall and her entire research team had been erased from history. Admiral Vexron of the Krillian fleet had come the closest to understanding the scope of human infiltration. His investigation had identified a network of suspicious incidents involving human workers across 17 different sectors. He had begun to piece together evidence that suggested a coordinated intelligence operation spanning decades. His final report had concluded, human capabilities have been systematically underestimated. Evidence suggests widespread infiltration of alien facilities by trained operatives. Immediate investigation required to determine scope of threat. The report was never delivered. Admiral Vexron disappeared from his flagship while traveling between Krillian worlds. The ship's sensors recorded no other vessels in the area, no transporter signatures, no signs of external interference. He had simply ceased to exist. When Krillian investigators tried to review his research, they found that all his files had been corrupted beyond recovery. His assistants reported memory gaps about their work, as if portions of their experiences had been selectively erased. The pattern was the same everywhere. Anyone who began to see through humanity's careful deception would vanish before they could share their knowledge. The humans had been patient and thorough, eliminating threats to their operation years before those threats could mature into real danger. Now, as alien civilizations collapsed around them, the surviving leaders finally understood the title of humanity's operation. There's no one left to warn them. Every individual who might have provided early warning about human capabilities had been systematically eliminated. Every piece of evidence that might have revealed the truth had been destroyed or altered. Every potential source of resistance had been neutralized before it could organize. The aliens who remained were faced with a terrible realization. They were not dealing with a species that had suddenly developed advanced capabilities. They were confronting an intelligence that had been hunting them for years, removing obstacles and gathering information while maintaining perfect operational security. Chancellor Veximer accessed the emergency database that was supposed to contain contact information for all major alien leaders and military commanders. What he found horrified him. Hundreds of names were missing. Individuals who should have been available to coordinate a response to the crisis had vanished over the past few years. "Sir," his aide reported, "I have been trying to contact the emergency response coordinators from all member species. None of them are available. Most appear to have disappeared months ago." "What about our own military command structure?" "Similar situation, sir. The officers who were most knowledgeable about human activities and most likely to organize effective resistance have all vanished at various times over the past year. Vexamer realized that humanity had not just been preparing to take control of alien civilizations. They had been systematically eliminating the individuals who would have been most capable of stopping them. The operation had been planned with a level of strategic thinking that surpassed anything in recorded galactic history. The humans had identified every potential threat to their plans and neutralized them years in advance. As reports continued to arrive about the collapse of alien civilizations across the galaxy, one fact became increasingly clear. There were no experienced leaders left to organize resistance, no military strategists who understood the scope of the threat, no scientists who could analyze human technology to find weaknesses. The aliens who remained were those who had been considered too unimportant to pose a threat. Junior officers, minor bureaucrats, and ordinary citizens who had never questioned the official assessment of human capabilities. They were alone, leaderless, and facing an enemy that understood them better than they understood themselves. The careful elimination of potential threats had been so thorough that many alien species found themselves unable to even comprehend what was happening to them. The individuals who might have explained the situation and organized a response were gone. In the final analysis, the humans had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had conquered an entire galaxy without firing a shot, simply by being patient enough to eliminate their enemies one by one over the course of decades. There truly was no one left to warn them. And now, 6 months after the Great Awakening, Park Janu stood in the control center of what had once been the Vexstar mining station. The facility had been completely transformed. Where once alien overseers had shouted orders at human workers, now human engineers directed the efficient operations of the most productive mining complex in the sector. The changes were remarkable. Under human management, the mining operation extracted 3 times more ore than it had under Vexstar control. The equipment ran more smoothly, the workers were more productive, and there had been 0 accidents since the transition. Status report. Park Jin-yu requested from his assistant, a young human woman named Han Sera, who had arrived with the first wave of administrators from Earth. Production is exceeding all targets, Han Sera replied, checking her tablet. The new equipment modifications have increased efficiency by 200%. The alien workers are adapting well to human management styles. Park Janu nodded with satisfaction. It had taken months of careful planning, but the transformation was complete. The aliens who remained on the station now worked under human supervision, performing the same maintenance and labor tasks that humans had once done for them. The role reversal was exact and deliberate. What about the Vexstar supervisors who chose to stay? Park Janu asked. They are adjusting to their new positions. Some resistance at first, but they are learning that cooperation brings better working conditions and treatment than defiance. Through the control room's viewing window, Park Janu could see blue-skinned Vexstar aliens crawling through the same maintenance tunnels that he had once navigated. They wore the same simple work uniforms, carried the same basic tools, and received the same dismissive treatment from their supervisors that humans had endured for years. The difference was that human supervisors were fair but firm, providing clear instructions and reasonable working conditions. It was a stark contrast to the arbitrary cruelty that aliens had often shown to human workers. Sir, Han Sera said, we have a communication from Earth Command. General An Jiho requests a status update on the integration process. Park Janu activated the communication system. The main screen showed General An Jiho sitting in his command center on Earth, surrounded by displays that monitored human operations across the galaxy. General, Park Janu said with a respectful nod, the mining station transition is complete. We are exceeding all production quotas and have successfully integrated the remaining alien workers into our new operational structure. Excellent. An Jiho replied, your facility has become our model for efficient resource extraction. How are the aliens adapting to their new roles? Better than expected, sir. Once they understood that cooperation leads to fair treatment, most have accepted the new arrangement. The few who initially resisted have seen the benefits of working with us rather than against us. The general smiled with satisfaction. That matches reports from other facilities. It seems that aliens are quite capable of adapting when they are properly motivated. This was true across the galaxy. In facility after facility, alien workers were discovering that humans could be reasonable and fair supervisors when treated with respect. The humans did not engage in the casual cruelty and arbitrary dominance that had characterized alien management of human workers. What about the broader integration process? Park Jinu asked. Proceeding smoothly, Anjiho replied. Most alien civilizations have accepted the new reality. They understand that resistance is pointless and cooperation offers them the chance to maintain decent living standards under human administration. The screen split to show multiple locations across the galaxy. On Vexstar Prime, human administrators were overseeing the reconstruction of the planet's infrastructure using more efficient Earth technologies. The former alien rulers now worked as consultants and junior administrators, providing their knowledge while learning to follow human leadership. On Krylia Prime, the massive military complex had been converted into a peaceful industrial center. Former Krylian warriors now worked in manufacturing facilities that produced goods for civilian populations rather than weapons for conquest. The Zelthic Commerce Hub had become a model of efficient economic management under human oversight. The complex financial manipulations that had enriched a few Zelthic merchants at the expense of many had been replaced with transparent systems that provided fair opportunities.